Hey there, everybody. I hope you are doing well. I'm a Bday with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. If you are returning to the channel and you've been with me, I thank you so very much. I appreciate your presence more than you know and your energy. Love the comments and the exchanges between people. You know, we keep it respectful. This is a community, so I really love your presence here. I never take it for granted. If you're new and you just landed on the channel, clearly I'm a tarot and oracle reader. Been doing it for decades. And I'm also a former newspaper journalist. So I try to approach my readings, I got a foot in both worlds, spiritual and, try to get to the facts and understand what's going on. So when I go to spirit, I'm solid within myself about what's actually happening and try and stay informed and give you some valuable content. Third thing I'll tack on, again, if you're not familiar with me, is I am an initiated priestess in both Wiccan and African traditions, okay? So got a lot of stuff under my plate or on my plate, and I try to use it all here on the channel. All right, you all, clearly we got to look at what's happening in LA. Like many of you, usually I tape on Sundays, but I'll tell you, I was so caught up in events as they were evolving. I just needed to stay plugged in. And so that's why I chose to come to you today. We're going to look at the outcome, the possible outcome of the protests in LA and what's happening there in real time. But also the subtext of that I'm getting from spirit and also in doing some research around this. So we've seen threats. We've seen Tom Homan come out, point blank. He's ready to go and arrest Gavin Newsom, who said, come get me. I'm right here. Like, what you're doing is wrong. I deliberately, made a request. Do not send in the National Guard. It's just going to escalate issues. And sure enough, it has. Karen Bass, specific comments made toward her as the mayor of LA. If you sneeze too hard, we're ready to come and arrest you. So want to take a look at the two of them and if in fact it will result in that. Also, we're hearing that the next step would be to bring in the Marines, that the Marines are on standby. We'll take a look at that. But also, remembering that next Saturday is this big to-do, this military parade, supposedly 250 years celebrating the military, but actually being turned into FDT's birthday celebration is really what, that's the main thing, right? And he's co-opting it. We know that. Some talk about whether or not a lot of this strongman stance in LA is actually a preamble to the justification for the military parade, this is, and notice that FDT, who tripped going up those stairs on Air Force One on his way to Camp David yesterday. Like, okay, I'm not smiling. Oh, karma never misses. And then Rubio did the same thing right behind him, right? You saw that. Like, wow, karma, chef's kiss. Okay. But I noticed when he took questions on the plane, instead of his usual, red MAGA hat, it's shifted to a white USA cap, right? Everything that they do, we know is strategic. So wondering if part of all of this is not so much a publicity stunt because it's having real impact, right? It's real. We're watching it in real time. Last thing I want to look at with that, you all, is Chicago, because just as Stephen Miller pitched a BITCH and said, you all, the mandate is 3,000 people a day minimum to be picked up and detained. So he said, look, hit out of Miller's mouth, we were told, Home Depot. Where did this happen in LA, right? Go get them in the Home Depot parking lots. Go get them at the 7-Elevens. Go get them wherever you know that they gather. Who cares about a criminal record? Who cares? All we need is people from other countries. Go get them. Chicago, from what we understand, is also a major city, sanctuary city, that has a lot of day workers especially in the south side of Chicago, at the Home Depot. Who's the governor there? J.B. Pritzker, who is also very outspoken and disliked by FDT, as is Gavin Newsom, right? So I want to see if Chicago needs to be on the alert if they're the next place. And finally, the last thing I want to look at today, had you all heard about the Proud Boys, this group of Proud Boys that were given some of the heftiest sentences? Enrique Tarrio, I wrote down some names: Enrique Tarrio, Joseph Biggs, Zachary Rail, Dominic Bezzola, and some others. I think it's 6 of them have filed a lawsuit against the government for $100 million after they were pardoned, because their constitutional, since they were pardoned, they're claiming their constitutional rights were violated when they were sentenced to prison. $100 million. They, after receiving a pardon from FDT, are now suing the government, suing the State Department, the U.S. government. Going to take a look at see how that goes. All right, you all, let's go in. Spirit. Will the protests in LA start to taper off before there's more damage or more escalation by military intervention? Will this start to settle down before there's more escalation, military intervention? We have the Fool that comes at the bottom of the deck. I am using, for my readers out there, you always ask me, I'm using the Tarot of the Sorceress today. Why not, right? All right, so we've got the Fool. So there's going to be a new tact taken, which the Spirit is also reminding me in some ways, him deploying, FDT deploying the National Guard, like I think they said hadn't been done in decades and supposed to be done under severe duress if there is in fact an insurrection. And he even admitted that there was no insurrection. So I think the Fool is indicating, you know, this is truly new territory for us. We have the 6 of Wands. That feels like it's going to go on a little bit more. And the 5 of Pentacles. This will be, wow. This will be a slowdown, because people understand that from the government's perspective, and even as Newsom has spoken about, I don't know if they've actually filed the lawsuit, or he certainly said they intend to file a lawsuit because of the fact that he sent in the National Guard, and Newsom said, please do not do this. He and Bass both said, don't do this. It's only going to escalate matters. I think that 5 of Pentacles is indicating, and with a 5 of Cups right behind it. 2 5s, cards that, if you're not familiar with tarot, cards that indicate struggle, some struggle in those areas. So there's a lot of emotional turmoil, clearly, you know, all across the land and globally as we witness this. There's a lot of turmoil and disappointment, but it's also a sense of, remember, because we got that 6 of Wands, that from FDT's perspective, he's not going to back down with this. He is completely prepared and committed to putting in, having already told the Marines to be on standby. Spirit, will this escalate to the point where the Marines are called in addition to the National Guard? Will the Marines be deployed in LA? We have the Empress. No. There's because this is more of a protective energy. And I think that this does feel like Karen Bass as the mayor of LA, but this also feels like there's someone else higher up that, and this also feels like, you know, as weird as this may sound, you all, this feels like military intervention, but from a reasoned standpoint that is female. I did not expect that. I just pulled 2. The World, stop it already. And another 5. No, I'm sorry. And an 8 of Swords. Yeah. No, The Marines will not. And I think that Empress energy is coming from somebody within higher ranks within the Marines that is saying, no way, no how, we have to, let's cut it. Like, we're not going to deploy U.S. Marines against in a major U.S. city. Not going to happen. It should never get to that point. That's that Eight of Swords. Like that, no, we can't let it get to that point. And there's also angst over the fact that they're as an entity, as a body, as a military body, that they've even been put on alert. Like, no, we're not doing that. The world, it will be brought to a completion. It will tamp down. Spirit, will there be an arrest of Newsom or Karen Bass? Will there be an arrest of Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass? Will one or both of them be arrested? We have the Lovers. Wow. There's a good chance that at the very least, there will be talk of that the pressure of that the bearing on that. And I'm feeling like that might be more towards, is this more towards Karen Bass? Is this more towards Karen Bass? Page of Fire. And the Tower. No, this is not more towards Karen Bass. This is more towards, this feels like it's more towards Newsom. Because Newsom is the one who came straight out and said, I'm right here. Come and arrest me. I'm not going to back down from this. And there's more animosity between he and FDT and his administration. The Nine of Cups, an outpouring of support for both Newsom and Bass. And the King of Cups, Newsom coming across. Okay, so this is more focused on Newsom, and Newsom coming across as more protective, being the adult in the room, throughout all of this. So there is definitely heightened, and I get it, because what they're saying is there will be continued pressure on Gavin Newsom as a result of this, because remember, you all, Newsom is 100% positioning himself for a run in 2028. Now, whether he, there's been some questions around him moving more towards the middle, having this podcast and inviting some of the MAGA folk on, et cetera, et cetera. Nevertheless, he is going to be a viable candidate, 95% certain for the 2028 election. And that is why they will continue to go after him, much more so than Karen Bass. He's more of a threat, and he has more national influence. He's also a part, and he's already gained a lot of influence by a coalition of 22 Democratic state governors who have come out clearly in support of Gavin Newsom. So that's what this is. I don't see him actually being arrested, but I do see the rhetoric being in, thank you, Spirit. If you've been with me before, I look for my aces, and that's my spirit guide's way of saying I'm on track. And notice that it's coming in water, in cups. So the emotion behind it, the flow behind it, and again, he came as a king. Newsom appears here for me as a king of cups, being more reasonable, really operating as a governor, trying to protect the rights of all people within his state. Whether or not we're in love with him right now, but he is functioning and he is doing his job. And as a result of that, I think Spirit's giving me that ace to confirm they're going to go after him long after. They're going to use this as fodder to go after Newsom long after this particular situation blows over and moves on from it, because as he prepares to go into 2028 and preparing for the end of his, he's term limited as governor in California. So yeah, the battle is just heating up and getting started with him. Final thing around here, around this question is, well, two things. Chicago. Is Chicago next? And then I want to look at whether a lot of this had to do with him, FDT, garnering more support for his military parade. Because remember, it's costing a hefty dime. 50 million is the figure that we've been given. We don't even know if that's true. Like, there's a lot of talk about that's not, like, that can't even cover the damage that's going to be done to the roads and the streets in DC because of bringing through all of these military tanks, right? Not to mention, over 6,000 troops, housing them, feeding them, etc. Like, they're saying 50 million doesn't even scratch the surface. So is part of this justification for this parade. First, Chicago, Spirit. Will we see something similar to what is happening in LA, in Chicago? Will ICE do something similar, and will there be a similar response in Chicago? Will we see a similar undertaking in Chicago? We have the 10 of Cups. Oh, possibility for sure, for sure. And it's almost, this feels like, because that's a heightened emotional energy, they're already expecting it. They're already on alert. There's already, there's already a lot of talk about it, a lot of be prepared. 9 of Pentacles, staffing, because we've already heard there have been recruitment, within ICE. There's been a lot of deputizing of people from where, I don't know, to put them in uniform and have them go and execute these arrests and detain immigrants. We have the Page of Pentacles that shows up. Spirit, why is the Page of Pentacles here? Going at it a different way, a new way of going at it. The Wheel of Fortune. All right, so there's going to be some lessons learned, hopefully, around how things went in LA. It's a matter of time. This is also a timing element, often when we see a Wheel of Fortune in this kind of a context. There's also a timing element. Like, they don't want to do it. It would be after. They don't want to do it too close together, is what I'm getting. They want to space it apart. The 10 of Wands, exactly. That's burnout. Because part of, thank you, Spirit. Part of what's happening here is the folks who are under fire, 10 of Wands, right? Folks who are under fire, who got yelled at and screamed at from Stephen Miller et al., who are saying either you do this or you get fired, like, this is taking a toll on them as well. Of course you have that's the 10 of Wands, burned out, pressure from both sides. You're screaming at me on this end. Protesters are screaming at me on that end. Maybe going home and they're to their families, and they're probably in their communities, and they're getting some pushback from their own communities. Because remember, we're also hearing, even within the MAGA, ranks at large, a lot of people had issues with immigration that had a lot to do with why they voted for FDT, but they didn't want it done this way. They didn't want it done with cruelty. That's what that 10 of Wands is about. A lot, yes, they're planning to do things in Chicago and other sanctuary cities, but there is some burnout within the ranks. Am I getting that right, Spirit? 2 of Swords. That's a conflict. Them feeling conflicted. Is that what I'm seeing? That many of these ICE agents and others, even the National Guard for sure, are feeling conflicted about being told to do this. Page of Wands, yes. Because as well, you all, pages can reflect young, youthful energy. Did you look? I mean, even though they were all masked up, these didn't look like Navy SEAL folks that were standing on the streets, the National Guard that were standing on the streets in uniform in LA, right? A lot of these are young people who rely on the military as a path forward, either for education, many reasons that young people enter the military. Was this one of them? Was this one of the is this what they saw themselves doing? That's a part of what we're seeing. And we get that 9 of Wands now that comes behind. Remember, we had the 10 of Wands before. So burnout, overburdened, overwhelmed, being given orders to do what's not been done before. Again, we're hearing historically, since when does an administration over the wishes of a government haul off and do something like this? This is within you all. From the higher ranks, bottom line, Spirit is saying, from the administration standpoint, yes, the marching orders are going to continue to be going to Chicago, going to wherever, these other sanctuary cities where there are immigrants and migrants searching for daily. Absolutely keep going. But the people who are charged to keep going, deeply, deeply burned out, because it's gonna, the wheel keeps going and they're being told faster, more, faster. Yeah, 3 of Earth. How do we continue to make this work? How can we continue to make this work? With the Hermit, a pullback, people being isolated. This is on both sides of the equation, you all. This is both within the immigrant community, continuing to feel more targeted, continuing to feel more isolated, and this is within the people who are being charged to carry out these orders. Because with the Hermit energy, it's the routine of it, it's the get it done of it. But there's the Knight of Earth, slowing it down. It can't be all crash and burn. It can't be, shock and awe. People are not ready to execute it out that way. They're not prepared. They're not trained, and they don't, in their souls, they're not feeling good about it. That's what, now, of course, you have that element that's, already all ready to do it. But that I'm not getting that's a majority of the people. And another page shows up, Page of Air. This is going to have a long-term impact, you all, on many, many young people within our armed forces, or those who would have given thought to being in our armed forces. And that this is in no way, it was all, for me, it was about protecting the U.S. or being trained to protect the U.S., not to implement and do things against, against cities within the U.S. So, no. They're going to push them, but it is only going to go so far. It's going to start to have some devastating effects from within the ranks, all right? And the final thing, was a lot of this done, or is it being done, Spirit, to justify the parade that FDT is having, his birthday parade? Because that's exactly what it is, right? His birthday parade. And the millions and tens of millions of dollars that are being spent for that. Is this being done, this show of force, is this being done in large part to justify his standing to have this parade on June 14? We have... Spirit said, let's just get right to it. You saw me shuffle, and right at the bottom of the deck, we have the Ace of Water or Ace of Cups. Yes. Yeah. It was important to him to be seen as truly exercising and having a command of the military and the star. Yeah, we don't even have to go. We can keep this one short. Yeah. Because he's looking also long term. The star ruled by Aquarius, he's looking at how far he can go to establish his power and authority, and get instant cooperation within the military. It also has a lot to do with why he and Rubio tripped up the stairs to Air Force One on their way to Camp David, because there you can bet your bottom dollar that's what a lot of those conversations are about as well. The need to coalesce around FDT, to follow his command, to execute his orders. And the Six of Cups. This is also his obsession with the golden age, right? And appearing as a golden age kind of president. That's a lot of what we're seeing here. Wow. Okay, so there's that. Proud Boys, let's move on. Proud Boys lawsuit. I mean, the irony of it all, right? You know, the irony of it all. The idea that all of the, you know, all of what it took to get these people identified. Well, people like Enrique Tarrio weren't hard, but to identify some of the main leaders of the Proud Boys, to you know, go through due process and have their cases go through the courts, to, you know, all the way to their sentencing and subsequent imprisonment, to have him reelected, promised to pardon them, and he came through on his pardon. I mean, on the pardons. And then to have them turn around and sue the government for $100 million. Yeah, let's see how that's going to turn out. Spirit, how's that going to go? Ace of Pentacles another ace at the bottom of the deck that came after I shuffled. So Ace of Pentacles, that feels like money coming